I never thought I'd feel unsafe in my own home. But one night, I heard something moving above me. At first I shrugged it off. A house settling, rodents, anything usual, but then, I heard breathing. Right above my head, I froze. My heart pounded so loudly I thought the walls would echo it back. The vent cover in my closet rattled gently like someone tapping a rhythm I didn't recognize. That's when I realized, this was no animal. Stay with me. This was the first night I knew I wasn't alone. I moved into that apartment at the edge of town because it was cheap and close to work. That's all I cared about back then. It wasn't anything special. 2 bedrooms, old carpet, faded yellow walls, and a weird smell I couldn't place. I told myself it was probably just the previous tenants cooking or the carpet not being cleaned properly. You know, rental stuff, you ignore it. But the first night I stayed there, something felt off. Not wrong exactly, just wrong enough that I noticed it. The bedroom was cold, really cold, even though it was midsummer and the windows were shut. I remember lying in bed trying to sleep when I heard this soft creaking above me. Nothing sharp or violent, just a low, subtle pressure, like someone slowly putting their weight on a wooden beam. I told myself it was an old building, probably settling. I laughed a little, turned over and pulled the blanket tighter around my shoulders. The next night, it was the same sound, but closer. It wasn't just creaking, there was weight to it. It moved, almost deliberately, like it started at one end of the ceiling and made its way across. Then it stopped, right above me. I held my breath, and I heard breathing. Not mine, not some vague wind-in-the-pipes kind of sound, actual breathing, slow, shallow, measured. It felt like it was right on the other side of the drywall. I stayed completely still, every part of me was screaming to move, to turn on the light, to run out of the room, but I didn't. I just lay there, eyes wide open, listening, and then the breathing stopped. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I climbed onto a chair to look at the ceiling vent in my closet. It was slightly crooked, not enough that you'd notice unless you were looking for it. But I was. I stood there for a few seconds, staring at it. Then I reached up and tried to nudge the metal grill. It wasn't screwed in properly, it just kind of wobbled. When I pulled it down, a small piece of plastic fell out. It bounced off my shoulder and landed in the pile of laundry near my feet. It was a wrapper, an old one, torn in half, a candy bar I never ate. That's when the first real wave of panic hit me. That day I told myself I was being ridiculous, paranoid. I even Googled whether rats could carry things into air vents. Apparently they can. That helped me breathe a little easier. But then things started disappearing. Little things at first, my phone charger, a pair of socks, a spoon, stuff you'd normally just misplace. But one morning, I woke up and the glass of water I always leave on my nightstand was gone. Completely gone. No ring left behind. The coaster was untouched. And on the floor beside my bed was a crumpled up napkin. It had something scribbled on it. I didn't even want to read it at first. I picked it up with 2 fingers like it was evidence. It said, "You snore loudly." That's it, nothing else. Just that, written in shaky handwriting. I remember my legs buckling. I had to sit on the edge of the bed. My hands were shaking. I told myself someone had broken in. That made more sense than the alternative. I checked that the door was locked, windows shut, latched, and locked. Then I looked up. The closet vent was open again, wider this time. I went to the landlord, told him what I'd been hearing, what I'd found. He looked at me for a long time, not surprised, not confused, just tired.
"You're in 3C, right?" he asked.
I nodded.
He rubbed his jaw and said, "You're not the first person to complain about stuff in that unit."
"What kind of stuff?" I asked. He didn't answer, just told me that if I was really uncomfortable I could break the lease. No penalty, no questions, he didn't even try to talk me out of it. That night, my last night there, I set up my phone to record. Propped it up on a chair, pointed at the closet vent, left the room light on. Then I went to sleep. Or tried to. At 3:41 a.m., I woke up to the sound of metal scraping. I didn't move, just stared at the ceiling. The sound stopped. Silence. Eventually I fell asleep again, more from exhaustion than peace. When I woke up in the morning, the phone was still recording 6 hours of footage. I scrubbed through it with trembling fingers. At 2:13 a.m., the vent cover wobbled. Then it fell. A hand came out first. Thin, pale, dirty fingernails. It reached around, testing the space. Then a head followed, shaved, sunken eyes, greasy skin. The man didn't look at the camera, he just stared at my bed. For 10 full minutes. Then he crawled out, quiet, methodical. He walked to my nightstand, picked up the glass of water, drank it, and then he stood over me, watching me sleep. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a napkin, placed it by my bed, and walked back, slowly, like he'd done it before. He disappeared into the vent, and pulled the cover almost closed behind him. I left that morning, took what I could carry, and never looked back. I didn't go to the police, I didn't post it online. I didn't want to make it real. But sometimes in hotels or friends' houses I still hear breathing in the ceiling. And every now and then, I find things missing. Small things, a spoon, a sock, a wrapper that isn't mine. And once, last year, in a place I hadn't told anyone I moved to, there was a note under my pillow. You don't snore anymore. I was never scared of the woods. I grew up near them, the thick kind too. Deep, tangled, pine-dense forests that people from the city called creepy. But to me they were just normal. I walked them after school, rode my bike along the old deer trails, even built a hideout one summer with a few buddies from the neighborhood. That changed last fall. It started on a Friday afternoon. I went for a solo hike up near the ridge. Nothing dramatic, a couple of hours, just enough to clear my head. The trail I took looped behind an old fire watch tower that hadn't been used in years. It's falling apart now, just a skeleton of what it used to be. But I'd always liked it. That day the air was still, not a breeze, no birds. Just the sound of leaves crunching under my boots, and I remember halfway up the hill, I got that feeling. You know the one, the feeling of being watched. I stopped walking and turned around. No one, not even a squirrel. I laughed it off, keep moving. But a few minutes later I found something strange. It was a pile of stones, perfectly stacked, about a foot high, and right next to it on the ground was a little figurine, hand-carved, looked like it was made from a branch. It was human-shaped, barely. No arms, just a head and body. No face, just a shallow X where the eyes would have been. I didn't touch it, didn't even get close. Just looked for a second, shook it off as someone's idea of forest art, and kept hiking. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the figurine, about how the wood looked freshly cut. And the weirdest part, I hadn't seen a single person on that trail all day. 2 days later, I found one outside my house. On the porch, same size, same shape, same faceless body, same X for eyes. It was standing upright, like someone had carefully placed it there. I live alone. My porch is fenced in, no neighbors within 50 feet. I brought it inside, put it on my kitchen table and stared at it for a while. Told myself someone was messing with me. It had to be a prank. But that night, things changed. At around 2:30 a.m. I woke up to a soft thump. It sounded like it came from the hallway. I live in a one-floor cabin, small enough to hear just about everything. I sat up in bed, listened. Another thump, closer. I stepped out of bed slowly, my feet hitting the cold wood floor. I didn't grab a flashlight, I didn't turn on the lights. I just stood in the dark, listening. And then I saw her. Silhouette, first long, thin arms. A head tilted too far to the left, just standing there, in the hallway. Still, I thought I was dreaming, or maybe not fully awake. But then she moved, not a step, just a slow lean, like her whole upper body was bending toward me. And I heard her say something. It was a whisper, but too close for how far she was. She said, "You shouldn't have taken it." I slammed the bedroom door and locked it. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped my phone twice trying to call someone, anyone, but I didn't. Who would believe me? When I finally opened the door an hour later, maybe more, the hallway was empty. But on the kitchen table, where I had left the figurine, there were two more, identical. One slightly bigger, one slightly smaller. That week I tried to forget. Tossed the figurines into the trash, started sleeping with the lights on. Told myself it was stress, lack of sleep, some kind of breakdown. Until I took a shower 3 nights later. The mirror was fogged up. I was drying off when I saw something in the steam. 3 handprints, small, one medium, one large, just there, pressed into the glass from the other side. I hadn't touched the mirror. I left town the next morning, drove 8 hours to my cousin's place, didn't tell him the full story, just said I needed space, a change of scenery. He let me crash on the couch. For a week things were fine, nothing weird, no whispers, no figurines. Then he asked me why I was putting stuff in his garden. I told him I wasn't. He walked me outside, showed me what he meant. 3 more figurines, right next to the tomato plants, buried halfway in the dirt, like they'd been planted. And behind them, carved into the side of the wooden fence, was an X. I don't hike anymore. I moved again, changed numbers, deleted all social media. I even stopped telling people where I live. I didn't believe my little sister at first. She was 7, and kids say weird things. Monsters in closets, imaginary friends, shadows that move. It's all part of growing up. But there was something in her voice that night that made me stop.
He watches me while I sleep.
I was 17 then. I'd just gotten my license, just started to feel like an adult. I didn't scare easily. But when I looked at her face, pale, eyes wide, like she was trying not to blink, it stuck with me. She wasn't playing around. She meant it. We lived in a quiet suburb, the kind where houses all look the same and the biggest excitement is the ice cream truck in the summer. My parents were always busy. Dad worked overnight shifts as a paramedic and Mom was usually on call at the hospital, so most nights it was just me, my sister and the old dog who barely got up anymore. That night was one of those nights. She came into my room around 2 a.m., just stood by the door. I remember waking up and seeing her silhouette in the hallway light, thinking for a second I was dreaming.
He's under my bed again.
I sat up, half annoyed, half asleep. I asked if she wanted me to check and she just nodded. So I followed her into her room. Everything looked normal, stuffed animals on the shelf, the dim pink nightlight glowing in the corner. I crouched down next to her bed and said, "See, there's nothing." I stopped. There was something under there. It wasn't clear, just a shift, a movement in the shadows. My first thought was, mouse. Maybe a raccoon had gotten in. I leaned closer, and then I heard breathing, slow, steady, deliberate, not animal breathing, human. I pulled her out of the room and shut the door. I called the cops, told them someone was in the house. They showed up 20 minutes later, walked through every room, checked the windows, closets, attic, and basement. They didn't find anyone. Nothing looked disturbed, nothing was missing, but I know what I heard, and I know what I saw. They told us it was probably a nightmare, said the house was secure, suggested we lock up, maybe get a motion light installed, and just like that, they left. My sister refused to sleep in her room. She started sleeping on my floor, curled up in a blanket next to the bed. And every night after that, she said the same thing. He's still there. 2 weeks later, I decided to prove her wrong. I set up my phone to record while we slept, just in case. Pointed it at her bed from the corner of the room, left it running all night. The next morning I almost didn't check the footage. But curiosity got the better of me. The first few hours? Nothing. Just us sleeping, the quiet hum of the nightlight. But around 3:41 a.m., the door to her room slowly opened. No sound, no footsteps, just a shape, sliding in. It wasn't clear at first, just the outline of a man. Thin, long arms, no shirt. He didn't walk, he crawled. On all fours, slowly, silently, right toward her bed. Then he stopped, and without hesitation, slithered under it. I paused the video, my hands were shaking, my heart felt like it was stuck in my throat. I skipped ahead. He never came out. I showed the footage to my mom that night. She called the police again. This time they searched harder. Found scratch marks inside the air vents. Found a small opening behind the water heater that led to the crawl space. And in that crawl space, they found bedding. Candy wrappers, old food, a pair of scissors, and a phone. Not ours. It was loaded with photos. Of us, sleeping. From under the bed. Turns out a man had been living in our walls. For weeks, maybe longer. He'd been sneaking out at night, moving through the vents, crawling under beds, just watching. Watching her. Watching us. They caught him later that week in an abandoned house 2 blocks down. No ID, no name, wouldn't speak, just stared. It's been years since then. We moved, changed everything, security system, locks, lights, you name it. But sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night, I swear I hear breathing, close, too close, and sometimes I still check under the bed, just to be sure. Sometimes, it's not the ghost stories that stay with you, it's the ones that feel too real. A door was left open, a whisper when no one's there. That strange feeling that someone's watching you, even when you're alone. And maybe that's why these stories haunt us, not because they're the scariest things we've ever heard, but because deep down, part of us believes they could actually happen. So, what about you? Have you ever heard breathing where there shouldn't be any? Have you ever felt like someone was hiding, just out of sight? If you've got a story that's real, raw, and impossible to forget, send it to me. The link is in the description. And if you're still here, thank you. It means more than you know. Thanks for listening, and remember, don't look under the bed tonight.